and Vice Chairman St. Clair.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes 8-0. We'll go to Board of Mayor and Aldermen for first reading.
Now we'll go to item 9. Discussion of using the planned commercial development (PCD) zoning districts for the redevelopment of the old Kroger property. Farragut Town Center at Biddle Farms, parcel 3.02, 3.03, portion of 3.18, a portion of 3.19, tax map 143, 45 acres, site incorporated applicant. Mark?
And I do have some citizen comments on this item, and I'll get to it at the appropriate time.
Okay.
But, just to give you an overview of what we're trying to discuss tonight for this workshop item. As you know, last month we conditionally approved the conceptual master plan for the town center at Biddle Farms, basically what you see on the screen, the revised village square there in between the commercial and the multifamily portion of the project. The project itself, we've talked about its location, its kind of unique physical characteristics. It doesn't abut any existing residential neighborhoods. It does abut 3 major arterial streets, and it has a floodplain on the eastern portion that kind of borders the property there. And we have reconvened our comprehensive land use planning steering committee for a couple of meetings here recently to look at this project and the mixed-use town center area in general. And as part of that discussion and the staff developer meeting discussion on August 4th, we were trying to figure out a way to address some of the more macro issues related to the mixed-use town center without really adversely affecting the timeline of this project, because some of those larger issues are going to take a lot longer to deal with. And so the more we looked at the project and the fact that it does have a conceptual master plan conditionally approved, we kind of backed our way into looking at the planned commercial development district as an option for this project. If you look at the objectives of that zoning district, it does check off a lot of the boxes that are there. It does have a mixture of uses. It has a lot of common open space and gathering spaces as part of the project. So I know that we have had some issues with the 2 planned commercial projects that have been approved and rezoned in the past, and we don't have planned developments much in our community, which I think as a planner is a good thing. But again, the more we looked at this project, the more we felt like, at least the folks that were involved in the discussion, felt like that it would be a good candidate for a planned commercial development. So a couple of things that we wanted to get the Planning Commission's feedback on was whether you all, as a group, feel the same way. And then, one thing we asked the applicant to do based on the feedback that we provided at the staff developer meeting on the 4th was to actually start looking at the planned commercial development language in the event that the full Planning Commission feels like that's a good option, and just identify, provisions in there that you may want to have revisited for this project. So 2 questions that we kind of need to get some feedback on. First, are you all okay with using the planned commercial development zoning district for this project? And then secondly, we'll go through some of the applicants' feedback that they provided the staff on some of the language in the current Planned Commercial Development District. As you all know, the Planning Commission voted to get rid of the district several months ago, and I did talk with the town attorney about that, and we did not take that to the board. We felt like there were some grandfathering issues and things that could come up with existing projects that are under that zone, and honestly, if the commission and the board of mayor and aldermen, they don't like the zone or they don't think that a project would be appropriate for that zoning district, then they don't have to rezone the property. So it really didn't seem to us to be an issue in that regard. So with that being said, I will turn it over to any questions that you all may have. This is just to show you again, that's the project. This is a little bit hard to read. This is from the future land use map of the general project area. As I talked about last month, most of their project is in the mixed-use town center land use overlay, which is the purple area. Brown area just outside that is medium density residential, which now would be limited to up to 8 units per acre. So that part of the future land use map would have to be amended for this project. And in the zoning, most of their project is zoned just regular commercial in the mixed-use town center overlay. There is a sliver of planned commercial development that comes across Brookline into their project, part of their project. You can see that in the brown there. So if the PCD is deemed to be a good zoning district, then we would need to rezone their entire project probably to the planned commercial development zoning district. So again, that's kind of an overview, and I'll be going through the applicants' specific, questions I guess they had with the PCD. But I guess the first thing I wanted to get from you all was your thoughts on using the PCD for this particular project.
Who wants to start?
I'll start just saying that I was at that stuff.
Mayor?
I'm sorry. Ron, did you want to go first?
No, go ahead, Louise. Go ahead.
Actually, both of us were at that. Mayor Williams and I were at this staff developer meeting where we went back and forth, and it was struggling to figure out how to amend this or amend that. And then at the end of it, we finally realized, this is a PCD, and we've kind of backed right into exactly what it is we've been looking for a PCD. And what do they say? 3 times a charm? So this kind of made a lot of sense for the setbacks that we were struggling with because of where they're putting parking and how they're trying to connect the square with the apartments with the commercial, which you need that proximity to establish that walkability. So that's kind of how we ended up in backing into this, just to give you guys some history. So I support it.
Yeah, this is John Green. Yeah, I second everything that Louise said. I think I heard Mark say at the staff developer meeting that this is complicated. And it seemed like the vehicle of the PCD was the most efficient way to get this thing captured and defined as far as zoning goes. So I support it as well.
Okay, Mayor Williams, I support it mainly because it fits what we were looking for. Whenever we first went into talking about a town center, we had a tremendous amount of feedback, an overwhelming amount of feedback from the citizens on what they wanted to see. And so we took that to heart,
And of course, you look at what can be done as far as what a developer will bring you. I mean, that piece of property has a lot of potential for a lot of different things, but the thing about it is you have to look at what is brought to you. That could sit there empty for a long period of time if you try to pigeonhole it into something that that was very, very specific. But in this case, it does check the boxes for the PCD. There's no residential neighborhoods around it, and because you've got the new Kroger facility and that whole structure down through there, this is between what commercial they're putting in and what commercial that is already there at the Kroger and everything up through there. You've got a very nice little neighborhood, walkable and biking neighborhood here. And one of the concerns that a lot of people will have with this is the traffic that is perceived, but with the new red lights that we'll be putting in, that where we can actually see if there is a backup, we can adjust the lights accordingly from the town hall, which is something we've not been able to do with the old stuff. But I think it'll be something where if we see an issue, we can address it, and wherever it's at, whether it be on Kingston Pike or Brookline or Campbell Station or really Concord Road. So the other good thing about this is there is a buffer area to the east before you actually get to Concord Road. And then you have a pretty good little buffer area between the apartment section and South Campbell Station. For that reasons, all those reasons, I propose that we amend the brown area to PCD to make the complete unit there as stated PCD.
I probably agree. If you look back at what we did with the original PCD there on the new Kroger area, there are elements of that never came to fruition. And so this one has a lot more of the elements that we were thinking about back in the day. And I think that all the elements that need to be taken care of in this kind of roll better into this plan under a PCD than any other option. Any other comments from the Commissioner?
Noah?
I think that I've had a lot of reservations with PCD, and the staff knows, the staff probably has struggled with it more than maybe the commissioners. Ideally, I'd like to get away from things that are subjective, but on a mixed-use project, when you're trying to do some things and think outside the box, I think under the circumstance, PCD really does make the most sense here. It's probably a lot more work for staff to be able to interpret and try to determine compliance. But I do think it ends up, you do end up with a better end product. Obviously, there's a lot of unknowns that we've kind of got to work through, and probably one of the biggest challenges that at least what I heard from staff with the PCD that includes apartments is they felt like it was just too much on too little, i.e. the total number of units here. Obviously, this property has some more space. They've got some floodplain, got to spread out and help some of their density rights. And those are probably some things I saw in the developer's write-up about some concerns that they have that they'd like to see in the PCD. But I think under the circumstance, the very reasons why we thought PCD was good 10 or 15 years ago is probably why it's very appropriate in this scenario as well.
Thank you, Noah. Any other comments from any of the other commissioners? Mark, you want to move on to the second item that you had for discussion on the
Yeah, I'll just,
comment?
I had in the packet the applicant's review and their comments regarding the planned commercial development district. And the staff talked with the applicant yesterday to go through some of these things and just, be a little bit more clear from our perspective on the nature of what they're trying to get at. And I'll just get through these briefly. The low impact development requirement basically is that at least 25% of the development's total area shall be designed so that its runoff will be accommodated through a low impact development measure. And after talking with the applicant about that, they've got so much open space, lawn space area, that I would have trouble believing that they would have any issues meeting that requirement. So I don't think that's going to be something that they will run into as being an issue. So we'll just have to see when we get more detailed information, but I don't believe the lowering or getting rid of the 25% low impact development requirement would really be necessary for this project. The second thing they talk about would be looking at some of our setback requirements, which from my perspective I think would need to be looked at. We also we'll need to look at parking lot setbacks, and basically the fact that a lot of the on-street angle parking is going to be probably within public rights of way. So we're going to have to create some provisions in the planned commercial development zoning district, perhaps where there's a mixed-use town center land use overlay, so that it would be differentiated from other planned commercial development areas that would address the kind of street system that they're proposing here, because this is the kind of street system that we would want to see in a planned commercial development. It has some traditional streets, and then it has some streets that would be town center style streets. So that's something we're going to have to work with. The fact that they don't have any existing residential communities that abut the development, there is a small area of property that is zoned actually residential. You can see it in the yellow there in the corner. But that could be rezoned, and it really isn't developed as residential. So I think some of the peripheral setbacks, I don't have a problem from the staff perspective of lowering that, given the context of this project. And the front setbacks, I think, again, we need to look at that in relation to the kind of street system that they're proposing here, and give them that kind of flexibility. I don't think that's going to be an issue. There's not a transition requirement here because it doesn't abut residential or agricultural. Or the residential it does abut, they'll be probably rezoning that, so that wouldn't be an issue. One of the things that we did want to talk with them about was their request for the height increase. In the planned commercial development zoning district, it allows for you to go 3 stories or 45 feet. What they're requesting is to go up to 4 stories, and they request 60 feet. We talked with them a little bit about that. He indicated that in the R6 open space residential, which is what the overlook is zoned on the north side of the interstate, we allow 4-story buildings there, but up to 55 feet. So we wouldn't really have anything currently that would allow you to go to 60 feet, and we're a little bit hesitant to go above 55, even if you all, we still need to get your all's feedback on the 4-story idea first, but I think if they could hold it to 55. And then related to that, they're requesting that the clubhouse height be increased from 25 to 35 feet. And that may be actually a good thing, depending on the multifamily buildings that are nearby, to give it a more appropriate scale in relation to those buildings. But I think I'd like to get your all's feedback on the height, because we did have some initial, questions about that when it was presented to the staff. So how do you all feel about going from 3 to 4 stories for this area?
Mayor Williams, I think the 4 stories is fine. I think the clubhouse 35 feet is fine. Is there a reason why they need the extra 5 feet? Is there some sort of a iconic feature or something on the top of the that they're concerned with that's taking up that extra amount of room?
I think the applicant is here. They could speak to that. I think they just wanted to give themselves a little bit of a buffer on the height. My understanding is from them that they can live with the 55 feet.
Mark, I'd be happy to address that.
Okay.
Don Kendall.
Identify yourself and the name and address.
Don Kendall, Development Management Group, Nashville, Tennessee, 4209 Gallatin Pike.
Thank you.
We after our conversation with staff yesterday, went back to the architect and had some more detailed conversations about heights and what could occur here. And I think that the architect has a strong desire, as does the developer, to provide 10-foot ceilings on these units and provide something that's really a premium in the market. And even with those 10-foot ceilings, we can stay within the 55-foot limit. So we're good there, but the only concern is on these buildings you're going to have an elevator shaft and a roof access that are going to poke up above that top roof line that would be at 55 feet and could extend as high as 59 feet, which is why it's important for us to have the 60. In conversations with staff, they indicated that they're going to count that from the roof line, so a parapet or a elevator shaft or a roof access may not be applicable to that 55-foot requirement. So if we could get some clarity on that, I think we're good with the 55-foot.
Yeah, this is John Green. I was hoping to hear that a part of the reason for the extra height was 10-foot ceilings. I think that adds a lot to our apartments because we're not really excited in some cases about apartments, but when you have apartments with 10-foot ceilings, it's a little bit different kind of apartment complex. So I think that we ought to try to work our way with that 60-foot to give them room to put 10-foot ceilings in and room for the elevator height.
Mayor Williams, I don't have a problem with the units that's on top as long as they're shielded, like what we ask other people to do. In other words, if you have air conditioning units or elevator shafts or something to that effect, and it's shielded to where it's not ugly, you know.
We dealt with this exact issue when we created the BD-4 zone a number of years ago, and there's some language in there that allows for exactly what the developer's talking about for this elevator shaft. And so, matter of fact, the bank building at Renaissance is under the BD-4, and we should be able to. It has the exact same features that they're talking about, and it's basically a 4-story building with the shaft going above the roof line. So I think we can take that same language out of the BD-4 and probably resolve this issue.
Thanks, Noah. That's a good idea.
Any other comments from commissioners?
And for the record, I do support that clubhouse going to 35 feet. I think the scale is going to be more appropriate for 35-foot height when you're next to these 4-story buildings.
I agree.
Absolutely, I agree too. Any other comments? Mark,
With comments on the height. Okay. The other things that, well, let me go through the other comments that they had first. There's a couple more. The parking requirement, I don't think is going to be an issue. They had requested for the commercial 1 space per 200 square feet. That's that's probably what I would recommend anyway. That's our requirement for small shopping centers that are less than 50,000 square feet. The ratio for multifamily portion is a little bit lower than our current requirement. They're requesting 1.6. Currently, it's 1.75. I'm not a big fan of over parking, certainly, as you all know. So I think that's some language that we could probably build some flexibility in as well. This may be the last multifamily that we would see probably in this zoning district. And then the density, I think, regardless of what the applicant needs in their project, we do need to establish a density cap for the planned commercial development district, and we'll need to do that as part of. And they're asking for up to 15 units per acre. I don't know how y'all feel about that. I guess it depends on the area that you're using to count toward meeting that density. If you take it kind of looking at the site plan from an aerial perspective here, I mean, it doesn't, because you got so much area to the east, it's floodplain. It doesn't look to me to be super dense, but that is, more than what we allow in the R6, which is 12 units per acre. They may be able to get to a 12 unit per acre density, depending on what they count. They could count the village square, as part of their open space, things like that are unique kind of gathering spaces for this development. But they are requesting, up to 15 units per acre. And probably the biggest issue that we still need to work through with the applicant and their engineering representatives is just dealing with the flood regulations and the town's current requirement, its freeboard requirement, which is its level of safety. It's basically how much more a community requires the first floor to be elevated above the established base flood elevation. The minimum requirement, the federal requirement, is 1 foot. We've adopted a 4 foot above the base flood elevation. One of the reasons we did that was we saw some flooding issues really with the Pinnacle Bank there at the corner, South Campbell Station in Brookline, several years ago when it was a 3 foot freeboard, and we raised that to 4 feet. So that's something we're going to have to, have some further discussion with the technical folks that are involved in this project to try to figure out how we're going to deal with that. And we'll certainly need to get the state floodplain coordinator involved at some point as well to try to figure out, a path forward in that regard. So, I guess getting back to the density, does anybody have comments, questions, concerns about the 15 units per acre?
Mayor Williams, Mark, we've got another PCD on the west side of town. What was approved for that particular property there?
What was the density?
Yes, sir.
It was over 15 actually. So it's about
20, I'd say.
I think it's about 18. Yeah, I think I remember.
When they divided out the land, that's what it turned out to be.
Yeah.
So 15 is less than what we've allowed in the past?
It's less than that. We don't have a density cap right now in the planned commercial district. 15 is what is referenced in the land use plan for the mixed use town center residential density.
Okay.
15.
Okay.
But that's really talking about, it was really intended to be in reference to a vertical mixed use building.
Yeah.
I think think that's what that was really targeted toward. But again, we need to establish a density cap, so 15 is what they're requesting.
Go
ahead, John.
I have a comment. I think one of the things that I've seen over the several of the meetings that we've had is I think we're all okay with the apartment complex as it stands. And I think we've also come to the agreement that we don't want any more apartments on this existing property. So I don't want to see us get in a position with the 15 that allows us now another building somewhere on this property. So that's the only concern I'd have with the 15.
That was the point I was going to make. We've approved this plan, this master concept plan with this layout, and I would not like to see any more buildings added to it.
Yeah, I think they need to show on their plan in details about what they're counting toward their, how they're balancing out that dwelling unit per acre. What is the acreage they're counting? Defining that and, putting a border around that, and that's the project. That's where the 15 dwelling units per acre. Anything outside that, of course, it'd have to be rezoned to something, and that would be a separate process, but it needs to be clear that would be this project.
We're including all of that open space along Turkey Creek, right? That's all considered part of the project area, is it not?
Yeah, it would be the project, yes. It would be the project that they have control over at this point, and that would include that area. Yeah.
So really what I would like to see is the delineation, because I'm not included. Is this all of this property, even the area that fronts Campbell Station Road, is that all, and the west side of Turkey Creek, is that all of their property? I mean, all of it, the project? So they'll have to delineate that out for the PCD.
Yeah, they will. Yes, they will have to.
Mark, I'd be happy to address that.
Okay.
So if you look at the concept plan, we're showing 2 detention ponds in that kind of open area adjacent to the multifamily. And one of those ponds is relocating the Kroger detention pond, and one of those ponds is for our project. Those ponds have not been designed at this point, so we're not sure how much room we need for that. But there's a big space in the middle of those 2 ponds, that if we were successful in getting the ponds to fit in that area, we would have some area where we could provide another use or something that could add flavor to the development. We would not propose to add any more apartment buildings in that area. And that area, as it shows on the plan right now, is 5 acres. And so if you were to extract that 5 acres out of the total, you would be at 15 units per acre. If you were to include that area, you would be at about 12 units per acre.
So tell me, what are you thinking of using? You said that there's 5 acres there that you might want to do something else with. What does that mean?
We literally don't know at this point. It could mean that, we've heard all kinds of crazy ideas of a boutique hotel, athletic center, something that could be an amenity to the overall development that would be used by the residents and could be used by, everybody. So we really don't have that fleshed out.
Okay.
We just like that flexibility.
I can jump in. Vice Mayor Povlin, this is Bud Cullum. We don't have a problem. Well, first of all, the conceptual plan and the site plan has to be approved. So if we wanted to add more apartments, we'd be back before you and the Board of Mayor and Aldermen again. Also, I would think, or at least before the Planning Commission. So I think that limits that ability, and that's not our desire. There's still some minor tweaks depending on the final grades as to exactly where those buildings are positioned. But as far as the number of units, we're happy with where we are.
Okay, I think that's our main concern is we're bumping up against a number that's making us uncomfortable. So where we are, I feel kind of comfortable. I like the idea of an amenity, but I also like the idea of open space. So as it is, that trail running along Turkey Creek is going to be a real nice asset, community asset. So in addition to the village square that we're offering. So I just wanted clarity on that for the same reasons that John mentioned. So that's all I had.
This is John Green again. Mark, given the comment that we just heard about the potential for that 5 acres in there, is there something we need, since we're going to be tweaking the PCD a little bit anyway, it looks like, is there something we need to tweak to make sure that that doesn't turn into something that we really, really don't want in this area? You don't really have to answer that right now, but I guess I'm going to give that some thought when we're tweaking, that we don't end up with something in this area that we really don't want.
One of the things that we've not really done a good job with the 2 previous planned developments is require a real specific set of specifications and, just really details of the project and how they're going to build it, how they're going to phase it, the staging and all that stuff that you really normally see in these planned development projects. That I've looked at that we haven't had many in the town, so but what we had, the most recent one that I was involved with was not really a lot of specifics in the narrative, not at all like what you would typically see this kind of project. So they really the way a planned project really should work is you shouldn't have a whole lot of ordinance parameters. The project really becomes the ordinance in a way. So they're going to they got a lot of work to do on creating their ordinance really with the project. So that's going to really be something that we're going to have to work with them a lot on in the next few weeks and months to get through that, and just make sure that the planned commercial district language doesn't get in the way of the project. But the project really, with their details, their narratives, and their all their specification sheets and information is really going to be what's going to guide this zoning district. And that's something we didn't do with the original Kroger or with the Watt Road project. And we need to not do that in this case and have a lot more specifics, and that would kind of address what you're talking about. It doesn't mean that they couldn't come back and request an amendment in the future, but it does hold them to some real specific standards and requirements that they would have to follow. They're getting some benefit for more density, higher buildings, flexibility and setbacks, and things like that. But in exchange, like we talked about with the Watt Road project, they really need to give, and they're giving back the community a lot of benefit as well. And they are doing that with their concept plan. They have the village square and the town center section, and the walking trail and open space and things like that. And that was one of the reasons why we felt like the master plan seemed to be a good candidate for planned commercial, because they have a lot of the elements of what I think we were looking for when we created the planned commercial district in the first place. So I just want to make that clear that there's a lot of work to do from this moment forward to try to get the details nailed down.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that 5 acres was either going to be open space of some kind, or it was going to be a facility of some sort that wasn't just an income revenue source for the developer, but more toward an amenity of some kind for the apartment complex or for the whole development. that it's actually a plus for the development.
Yeah.
Commissioner Green, this is Bud Cullum again. I think in a perfect world, what would happen is that it would be a combination, potentially both. I think at one time you probably remember seeing an initial concept plan where it showed in some of that area being an assisted living facility that we didn't have any concrete user for that, and since then we've kind of decided that that's really not something that we would want. But because of the price of the land, if there's an area, if we can what we want to do, and still have some area for additional use in the future, I guess in my mind, even if we're still, we haven't maxed out on our units per acre with small families, we still have to get a concept plan. So obviously, if we came back and said we want to build more multifamily, we would be at the mercy of the planning commission, who could just say no. As I said, that's not our plan. But the idea would be to have not only our walking trail and our detention facilities, but more open space / park space. But again, in a perfect world, still have some room for more revenue creating land also. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Yeah, it does, and I didn't mean to imply that revenue is a problem. I understand how that works, but I would like it revenue that's also beneficial to the facility, that's also beneficial to the project.
Right.
And because of the PCD, I believe this commission has the final say on what could be added or taken away from this. We've got this concept plan approved, but it doesn't show anything in that area. So if we desire to add something to that area, we'll have to work collectively to decide if that's the right thing to add to the PCD by amendment. So we'll all participate in that process if and when something comes up that would be attractive to add to that area.
And my comments are really to help you gauge how we are thinking about that space. You may have some great ideas that we haven't even thought about yet, but I think I'm hoping through this dialogue that you begin to understand kind of where we're coming from and help you to focus on what will work and what will not work.
Yeah, to that end, I would add that if it's not open space, it needs to be something that's rather low impact idea of concept. It can add to the development, but still not a noticeable impact of the overall plan and scheme and infrastructure.
And part of that's floodplain anyway, isn't it?
There is some floodplain that kind of intermingles in that area. And again, it could be that detention ponds end up taking up a majority of that space. So that's why we haven't tried to plan anything for that area, because we're just not far enough along to understand what's going to be available.
Yeah.
This Commissioner Diggs, did you hear?
Betty?
Yes. I think we need to be careful not to overbuild and leave areas for these people living in the apartments to get out of that. So we need to know what's going to happen here. Is there not a designated open space for this development or requirement?
Betty, I can't really hear you clearly, so I'm not understanding what you're asking.
I think her question was, what is the requirement for the open space, and does that area, the 5 acres that would be in between those two ponds, make up the minimum requirements of open space for the development?
Yeah, there's an open space amenity for the apartments and the rest of the house.
I think that's going to be crucial.
There are open space requirements that are outlined in the PCD requirements. I believe it's 30% overall, and we didn't see any problem with meeting that requirement.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Anything else, Mark?
I do have some comments that I do need to read into the record. Does anyone have any other comments from the Planning Commission?
But you settled in on the density, didn't you?
I think I got enough feedback on that.
Okay. With the 15, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I'm late to this discussion, but can someone give me some idea about how this will impact, like, Farragut primary? Has there been any studies to show that with this density?
What question, Michael?
Vice Mayor Povlin, you probably have already looked into this, but has anyone discussed how this is going to impact Farragut primary?
Apartments tend not to provide much student yield. It breaks down to 12 students for K through 5, 7 students for middle school, and 7 students for high school.
Where did you get that data?
The Knox County Planning, every 5 years they reanalyze the student yield for single-family detached, single-family attached, multifamily, market rate, multifamily, I think it's called, I don't know if it's called affordable housing or not, but for each sector in Knox County. And so we're considered the southwest sector. So in the southwest sector, there's a yield rate they get, and then they analyze it down to the K through 5, and it comes out to about 24, 25 students total.
Because we seem to be at maximum capacity at Farragut primary.
Yes. And they've approved a new school over in Carnes.
Okay.
We will be building in the next 2 years. Should open in the 2021? So 22, August of 22. Susan, we have 276 students zoned for primary, well, that was last year, primary and intermediate across the highway that Susan Horn envisions being moved in this process either to the new school or as a rezoning to Hardin Valley Elementary, which is where they belong because they're zoned for Hardin Valley Middle and Hardin Valley Academy. So that is our overcrowding problem right there.
Thank you,
So do that. And they are doing a feasibility study to add on to Farragut Intermediate. I'm not sure where that stands, but they've budgeted that in the Board of Education for this fiscal year to do a feasibility study to add on to Farragut Intermediate.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
You're welcome.
And there will be a traffic impact study, obviously, for this project. And then we need to look at the Brooklawn Street modification, as an element of that, and all that's going to have to be looked at. Again, all that we've really looked at so far is just this conceptual master plan, and that's a good first step. But there's a lot of details and a lot of specifics that will have to be worked out.
With Principal Gina Bird at all? Has anyone spoken to Gina Bird?
Sorry, Michael.
I was just wondering if Ms. Horn had consulted, or anyone on the commission had consulted with Principal Bird, Gina Bird.
Well, remember this year with a lot of the students, I can't say a lot, 25% or so on virtual learning. It's got to make a big relief for her as far as building capacity. So understood that this problem is getting resolved. These apartments won't be built in that, I think the new school would be open by the time these start.
Okay. So you anticipate the school being completed prior to?
Well, the school is supposed to be due August of 2022 is supposed to open. This is not going to be your pressing area. You're only going to get a handful of students out of this, so.
And I think the timeline for building new schools could be impacted by the overall revenue for the county right now with the pandemic that affects on business.
Well, the school is funded. The building of that school is funded, yes.
Fully funded.
And so is the road.
It's funded, and so is the road to improve in front of Couch Mill, whatever it's called.
Couch Mill.
All of it is funded.
Okay. Ready for citizen comments?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and get started on those. The first one comes from Susan Royster. I've now lived in Farragut over 30 years with relatives prior to me going back to historic Concord, buried in Pleasant Forest Cemetery. So I guess you could say I have a long history with this community. Like many others, I've watched it grow from a quaint rural area with beautiful landscapes, fields, and farms to an ordinary community. I say this because the heart of our community off Kingston Pike has been lined with empty big box commercial buildings. At least, thank goodness, something is being developed at the intersection of Kingston Pike and Campbell Station. All these years I have driven down either Concord or the new Campbell Station and enjoyed large fields and horse pastures. At the beginning, when the new white fencing was installed, these fields were maintained and looked nice. After the barn fire, they have virtually been ignored and become quite an eyesore. Many of us complained after the burnt barn was allowed to sit there for almost 2 years. I was told the town of Farragut wasn't forcing cleanup because they wanted to deal with the Bill family on the other property and didn't want to step on any toes there. We don't need or want any more new development, and especially apartments in the heart of our town. Also, many other buildings sit empty. Now Steinmart is going out of business, thus another empty spot. The town of Farragut has spent millions on all the new parks, that is McPhee, Watt Road, and as nice as they are located at the fringes of our town. Unless you make a point to drive those ways, you never see them. Wouldn't it be nice for the town to purchase this beautiful property, keep the majority open, and maintain pastures, rebuild a nice-looking barn structure, and use that as a community center that could be rented for special events, outdoor amphitheater, etc. This would make a beautiful statement in the heart of our community that would be seen by everyone on a daily basis. I'm sure this is pretty much a done deal, and a long-time resident's opinion is not needed or appreciated. But I just felt I was doing the community a disservice if I didn't speak up. Thank you if you are still reading my email. Susan Royster, 715 McGuffey Drive. The next one is Ben Stoll at 724 Foxdale Lane. What makes Farragut awesome is its sense of community. Tear it down and put horses there, but please don't add high-density housing to Farragut. Keep it a great place to live. The next comment is from Michelle Chandler at 12944 Water Grove Drive, which actually is not in the town. As a long-term resident of Farragut, I strongly oppose the proposal of apartments on the property next to Kroger. Our schools are overcrowded. Teachers are quitting due to this. We do not have the infrastructure in place for additional residential development, let alone housing such as this. The fact that you're making these type of decisions during a time when the public cannot be present is concerning. The next comment is from Elizabeth Ham, and she's at 11428 Old Colony Parkway. I just wanted to let the Municipal Planning Committee know that I'm a Village Green resident and I'm in favor of the proposed apartment complex at the location of the former Kroger. Thanks. Next comment is from Rick Shaft at 205 Battery Hill Circle. It's my understanding that an apartment complex and retail outlets will be constructed on the old Kroger property. I have a real concern with adding yet additional traffic in this zone at select times during the day, especially in the morning when school's starting, and then in the afternoon when everyone is trying to get home. The traffic flow can be very difficult. What is your plan to deal with the infrastructure? Thank you. Next comment is Kristen McGuire. She's at 617 Blackburn Drive. I am writing in response to the proposal to build apartments where the old Kroger building is currently standing. While that shopping center has been allowed to become an eyesore and desperately needs to be used in a way to benefit our town, I do not believe building apartments is the answer. Traffic coming into Farragut from the level road is already terrible each afternoon. Building apartment homes at this proposed site will only increase the traffic flow exponentially. Farragut is already putting so much time and money into creating a downtown field corner of Kingston Pike and Campbell Station. Why not create an area much like the new Kroger shopping center? Flow of small businesses from the Grape Restaurant around to Papa Murphy's is a great area to stroll and shop in. Use the old Kroger area to continue that feel, including spaces for bistros, salons, locally owned boutiques, as well as office space for other local business. I'm absolutely against building apartment buildings in the town of Farragut. Next one is from Suzanne Cielo at 614 East Foxden Drive. I'm very opposed to building apartments at Old Kroger. Congestion in the area is terrible as it is, and we certainly don't need another stoplight. That with building the Farragut building on the corner of Kingston Pike and Campbell Station would be insane. Farragut has become too crowded and will no longer be a place that people want to move because of crowding. I love that younger families are moving in and like that they are fighting to find a home here. Let's keep it like that. Next one is from Angel, Angel Iacasio, 12628 Complaint Drive. Say no to 300 apartments in the old Kroger site. Next one is from Rebecca Mihalik, I guess. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. 406 Gwenhurst Road. I'm writing to you to request that you seriously reconsider and not allow any apartment complexes to be built inside the city limits of the town of Farragut. There are too many reasons to put on the paper why so many people in Farragut are opposed to this, and that if I did write it all, you would probably not take the time to read such a lengthy letter. Please listen to the citizens that you're representing and do not allow apartment complexes to come into the town of Farragut. Next one is Terry Savage, 417 Cutlass Road. Please do not allow apartments to be built at the old Kroger site. Traffic on Concord Road is already out of control. For those of us who live in Concord Hills and other neighborhoods that access Concord Road, leaving or returning home in the afternoon is near impossible. That site should be used to help with the overcrowding in the Farragut schools. And we got a comment from Judy Overholt Wheeler from 11530 Woodcliff Drive. I do not want to see Farragut become any more congested than it already is. Be content with the mess we have. Let some green space into the area. Is it greed? Bigger is not always better. No apartments is my choice. And then the last comment is from Mike Mitchell. 716 Brixworth Boulevard. And 280 apartments at the old Kroger location will forever change Farragut in many negative ways. There is no way to accommodate the added traffic without changing the character of this area. Now, during school hours, there is traffic gridlock. Why add 280 apartments to that existing traffic gridlock? The apartment occupants cannot entirely support this new Farragut Town Center, and the hassle of traffic going there will keep other people away. This is a dated plan that ignores current reality. People will not shop at a place that is difficult to get into and out of. This is a blockbuster videotape idea in the time of Netflix movie streaming. Drive through the Turkey Creek Shopping Center. There are many vacant buildings there now. Some of that is a retail downturn. Some of it is caused by COVID-19. The renovated Old Ingalls Shopping Center is waiting for businesses, but no one has come yet. And that is a convenient place to get in and out of. That should set off some alarm bells. When the town of Farragut created the town center concept many years ago, there was no COVID-19, and Amazon was not the local business destroyer as it is today. We do not know what future bars and restaurants have in a post-COVID-19 world. They may not have a future. The Planning Commission should reject this plan. It is too risky. It is the wrong location. It could do too much harm to the town and the property value of Farragut residents. Farragut should stay true to its roots as a veteran community. People moved here to get away from an urban environment. Trying to be all things to all people is a sure way to be nothing to anyone. This concept plan really does not match the vision of a town center as passed by the town of Farragut years ago. That plan had mixed-use businesses on the lower floor and condos and apartments on the upper floors. This is a bunch of apartments and 2 strip malls masquerading as a town center. This does not elevate Farragut. It is just a Me Too copycat sellout for apartments in a place they are not needed or wanted. The town of Farragut has already approved too many apartments in the past few years. We have no need for apartments, especially at this location. This proposed Farragut Town Center has many parallels to the Downtown West Shopping Center near Westtown Mall. In the early 70s, many executive apartments were built south of Downtown West Shopping Center and south of Gleason Road. Even though there was a very successful Westtown Mall, developers took the gamble and built out Downtown West. The concern is that Farragut's Town Center would become what happened to Downtown West and the apartments south of Gleason Road. Downtown West has changed many times and is historically a business failure. Blueprint of what not to do. Many of the apartments south of Gleason Road became Section 8 low-income housing. That was thought to be impossible when those apartments were built in the 70s. It can happen anywhere, even in Farragut. Flash forward to the present. Why would anyone shop at the proposed Farragut Town Center when they could shop at the Turkey Creek Shopping Center or purchase their items from Amazon, Target Direct, or Walmart Direct? Back when Downtown West Shopping Center was built in the 70s, there was no COVID-19 and no Amazon. It still failed because it wasn't a good idea. This Farragut Town Center is a gamble the town of Farragut should not approve. There are many better options for this land, options that are safer and match what the people of Farragut say they want. The old Kroger's could be used as a learning annex to Farragut High School and for storage for Knox County schools. That would be very helpful in increasing social distancing in our schools with COVID-19. Should this virus continue into 2021, one of the biggest requests in the town of Farragut is for an aquatic center, which would be a great fit for this empty farmland. There could be tennis courts for Farragut High School. It could also be a good location for a new subdivision, which would be much better than the proposed town center. In terms of bringing money to the town, the subdivision is a safer bet and is better for the residents. Why invite risk when there are better options? And that's all I have on this particular item. Citizen comments.
Very good. Thank you, Mark. Thanks for hanging in there and reading that. You're welcome. Ready for item 10?
Ready?
Let's go. Item number 10, discussion of amendment to the Farragut Municipal Code, Appendix A, zoning, Chapter 4, Section allow for food trucks for special events sponsored by Homeowners Association, Town of Farragut, Alabama. Mark?
Okay, somebody needs to mute themselves, I believe there, but this originally actually started out with an initial objective of creating some provisions in our special event section of the zoning ordinance that would allow homeowners associations to have food trucks as an option. Currently, food trucks are only an option in a non-residential setting, and you know, as we've had the COVID pandemic, people are not eating out as much; they're staying more at home in their subdivisions. So what we were trying to do was create an opportunity to allow for food trucks to come to residential areas through an approved process that would have certain parameters that they would need to follow. I originally took that idea and that was given to me to look into, and really, given the fact that we have amended our sign ordinance, it's going for second reading next week. It was a good time to actually update that aspect of the special event section in our zoning ordinance as well, and to tie it to the new language